I mean, it sounds very hunky-dory saying that yes, we've transformed, we are trying to do things differently. But I think like any brand, like any company, we as an emerging business, I as an individual, I think the hustle is on. I think there are two words which I often use to describe what we've kind of gone through. The situation has been essentially unpredictable and it's been enormous. So the unpredictability and the enormity of the situation, but we kind of took it on its head, turned it on its head and said that we'll create escrow as a service. So we were the first company to disrupt that space and launch escrow as a service. So the first learning is that you have to go with your instinct. This is going to be the new normal and you're on your own. So it was a free fall, but I went with my instinct. The second learning is, to stay focused. Hi everyone. See some very, very familiar faces here. And I think, fortunate that I've been part of this platform along with Vatsal, I think for what, Vatsal, 12 years now? 10 years? 10 years, yeah, okay. No, I think so, when he asked me that, are you coming? Are you attending? I said, yeah, I'd love to. I mean, it's DMA and Vatsal and the team, I think, has been an integral part of my journey over the years, and my personal journey actually has undergone, big transformations. So I think most of you are friends who've been, in touch with me. They know that, I transitioned in 2017 from a very sort of a stable, cushy CMO role with a large group, and there were certain factors which were beyond my control, and because of which I had to transition. And then I was in two minds, what to do next. And my heart always said that, I want to do some stuff on my own. But then, the wife comes in, the family comes in, and compulsions of a comfortable job and an assured return on the 30th of the month, pretty much kind of excites you to take the step which your heart doesn't believe in, and you go with your mind. So I took up another assignment for a very short while, and then I kind of transitioned again into what I wanted to do always, which is my entrepreneurial journey. So I've been in this entrepreneurial journey for the last 2.5 years, and Vatsal said that, what are you going to speak about? So I said, look, all the Rati Maharatis and the brand gurus are here. They're going to be talking about their brands and businesses. I'll talk a little bit about, what's been my journey. And to a large extent, when I was kind of reflecting last night, and I actually diligently sat and made this script, because Vatsal, that's for you. He actually threatened me that, listen, if you don't come up with a script this time and you kind of go ad lib, I'm afraid you're not going to speak. So I said, okay, I'll definitely, kind of keep my promise. I've never let you down. So here's the script. There's some pointers. But I think largely, and I was also, I was actually, told by him that you need to listen to everybody very carefully, because ultimately your job is to summarize. But quite honestly, I think what most of you said, whether it was Ashu, I walked in a little late for your session, stuck in the rains, or Nikhil or Anita, or Nitin, or even Lloyd for that matter, or anybody else, I think largely the points were pretty much similar, because I think in the last 15 to 20 months, and things have been crazy, right? We don't want to kind of overemphasize on that, but I think there are two words which I often use to describe what we've kind of gone through as a bunch of guys, as families, as individuals, as corporates, is that the problem or the situation has been essentially unpredictable, and it's been enormous. So the unpredictability and the enormity of the situation is something that we can't really control. So given that, just to kind of share my learnings and my thoughts, how my journey has been and how I panned out. So for some of you who are not familiar, what I've done is I was a angel investor in a very interesting fintech venture. So when I kind of transitioned into my journey, the founder, my colleague, the co-founder, he said that, look, now that you're there, now why don't you come full time? Instead of engaging with me over the weekends, come full time, become my co-founder in the business and wear a operating hat. So that's something that I do. So we've created a very, very interesting, fintech model. We are India's first digital escrow business, so which has been traditionally the bastion of large banks. It's a banking product, but we kind of took it on its head, turned it on its head, and said that we'll create escrow as a service. So we were the first company to disrupt that space and launch escrow as a service, or banking as a service. And the second thing which I'm very passionate about is I have actually incubated a growth advisory model for emerging businesses. So that was one thing that Vatsal cautioned me, that listen, we are not here for the enabler ecosystem. So I said, look, none of these guys, at least most of them, are not my target audience, right? So I'm not going to be selling my wares here. But essentially the idea was to kind of share my learnings. So I think the way things have panned out in the last 15 to 20 months have been very interesting. And much as I would try to reflect, I think it's not been very different from what brands and organizations have gone through. So the first learning is that you have to go with your instinct. Now, as Nikhil said, when they were actually, like you mentioned, the video call center or the video demo center that you did, you have to go with your instincts, right? There was no empirical data to suggest that that's something that will work for you or didn't work for you. But you don't have a choice, you went with your instincts. So likewise, when I started my journey, it was pretty much a free fall. The first, and this is for people who are already entrepreneurs, they would know. But some of my friends in the room, I can't take names, who are maybe contemplating being on their own. I think the first learning was that, when people used to, in 2 minutes, they used to respond to your phone. And less than 2 minutes, they used to respond to your Seki's phone. But I think the first awakening was that when you started calling them in your journey, is that they refused to take your calls. So it was the first sort of awakening. So it took me about 90 to 120 days to actually figure out that, listen, this is going to be the new normal, and you're on your own. So it was a free fall, but I went with my instincts. I went with what my heart said and not really my mind. And I'm not saying that we've kind of completely cracked it in both the businesses that I run today. But yeah, to a large extent, I think going by my instincts has helped me. So I think for brands also, at times there is no empirical data, there is no hard data to suggest what works, what doesn't work. But I think going with your instincts, going by the feel of the gut, I think is a golden rule, which won't change, and I think pretty much will remain the same. The second learning is, to stay focused and really consolidate and not try and do everything for everyone. I think as brands, as companies, and even as entrepreneurs, we pretty much try and become like butterflies, hovering around from one level of excitement to the other. And but given the fact, the way the current situation is, there's finite capital, finite resources. So I think it's always good to stay focused, stay consolidated. And I think that's what I've also personally done. I was doing a whole bunch of things the last 6-7 years. Besides wearing sort of the operating hat that I was in my day job, I used to be quite active and still am in the startup ecosystem. There were multiple things that I was doing. And for the first 60, 70, 90, 120 days into my journey, I was doing multiple things, doing 10, 15 things. But then I thought that, hey, you know what? What's the point in doing too many things? Let's just consolidate. And I think the pandemic or the situation in the last 1.5 years actually forced me to stay focused, stay consolidated. So that's the second learning. The third thing, which I think Nitin briefly alluded to, is you can't do it alone. You have to create an ecosystem. You have to learn to collaborate, right? So if you look at what I've done in my fintech venture, banks were our competition, large banks, and they were pretty much kind of rolling out an escrow product for the last 100 years. But we said that, listen, we can't afford to compete with them. So as a fintech, let's collaborate with them, right? So what we actually did was created ecosystem synergies, and we were able to kind of roll out a product which was genuinely focused on solving a customer problem. And I think that's what you mentioned, right? That you can't do it alone. You have to collaborate. You have to create an ecosystem. Likewise, when I come to my advisory model, one of the things which we are focused on doing, and Girish, who's my co-founder in that business, sitting here, and possibly you guys can engage with him offline. We decided that we are not just going to be going in there and giving some over-the-top gyan to people and moving out. We're actually going to be helping them solve some of these problems. So we'll get into the execution leg of things. And if it means rolling up our sleeves, we'll try and do that. But again, being a young business, being capital, having finite capital, we could not have built the entire execution capability on our own. So we actually had to partner with an ecosystem of curated partners, and that's what we've done. Neeraj is sitting here. He's one of our partners when it comes to quality execution for some of our client partners. And again, the whole idea was to build that ecosystem which could enable you to be successful for your customers and audiences. I'll just take two more minutes. The fourth learning is that, you actually, and this is a golden rule which hasn't changed, and more so even during the pandemic, is that you need to be really, really close to your customer. I mean, more than ever before, I think you really need to understand what your customer is going through. You need to have that level of empathy and basically stay completely focused in terms of solving that problem that you're seeking to solve. And the last one is leveraging technology. I know this sounds like a motherhood, but I think at the end of the day, I think, some of these sexy words like being phygital, digital transformation, people were using these words not for the last 1 year, but for the last 10 years maybe. But I think, and I still remember 2012 when as a CMO, I kind of started my digital transformation journey in my group. It was very early days, but and a lot of people tried doing that. But I think in the last 1.5 years, this is actually becoming a reality. You actually don't have a choice but to genuinely be phygital in your approach, genuinely transform yourself digitally as an organization. So that again remains a golden rule. So I think if you were to reflect and see what all of us have gone through as marketers, as individuals, as families, as companies, as brands, uh, 3 or 4 things have not really changed. Yes, a lot has changed, but at the same time, certain things have not changed, and they are where they were. But I think the way you deliver, the way you kind of deliver on an agenda, has changed. So I'd like to call it the 4 C's. One is consolidation, right? So I think you have to stay focused, given the fact that you have finite capital, finite resources. Stay focused, consolidate, marshal your resources. Number 2 is collaboration, right? Number 3 is co-creation. So when you're actually sitting with your partners, your customers, etc., focus on co-creation and not just be positioned as an enabler. And the last one is creativity. So whatever you do, try and do it differently to the best of your abilities. Stay creative. So these were some of my learnings, some of my takeaways in terms of what we are doing and how we are poised to kind of sort of walk from here, given the unpredictability of the future and the current situation. But you know what? I mean, it sounds very hunky-dory saying that yes, we've transformed, we are trying to do things differently. But I think like any brand, like any company, we as an emerging business, I as an individual, I think the hustle is on. We all really need to hustle, kind of every day. And it's a T20 match. It's a new over every day. So keep batting and stay sharp, stay agile, and hope for the best.